Alex Zaballa. I'm from Brazil. I'm also an Oracle ACE director. I'm now living in US. I'm doing a lot of Oracle certifications on my free time. This is my blog, my LinkedIn, Twitter. I'm also part of the Brazilian Oracle user group. And I have some certifications from other cloud vendors. Since June 2019, I'm based in Dallas. So I started my career in Brazil. I was a developer. 2000, I started to work as an Oracle developer, like forms, reports, and SQL, PL SQL, designer. 2007, I moved to Angola. Let me change my pointer here. Better. As a DBA, I spent 8 years in Angola as a DBA for the Ministry of Finance. 2015, I moved back to Brazil and I moved to São Paulo. So I worked in São Paulo for Enkitech for 4 years, and then I moved to Dallas. Enkitech is now part of Accenture. About the ACE program, if you are interested in this program, just ping me, we can talk. So let's talk about cloud. So why Oracle Cloud? What I like about the Oracle Cloud, it's you can use the same architecture, the same software, and same skills you are using on premises, you can use in the Oracle Cloud. So if today you are a DBA and you are working on premises, it's very easy to switch to a cloud DBA. About this presentation, why move my database to OCI? The best answer is, of course, Oracle is responsible for the database. So the Oracle Cloud for sure will be the best option to run the Oracle database. And two more things, please keep in mind, I will talk later about CPU and network. Just one example, why you should move to OCI. I'm not a sales guy, so I will not talk about the licensing, price, and everything, but this is just one example. You can see why you should move to OCI in terms of cost. And another thing, it's about the network part, about the outbound transfer. So you have a very good case from Zoom. So you can just Google why Zoom moved to OCI and how much they are spending now on OCI. More things you have only on OCI. One thing is the Oracle reapplication cluster. I know you can run RAC in another clouds, but only the OCI will have the reapplication cluster certified and supported. For in the other clouds, you need to go to the vendor, and Oracle will not support you if you are using this in another cloud. And another thing, it's the Exadata. So you have Exadata in the cloud only in the Oracle Cloud. Okay, before start, that's a good question. Will I lose my job when I move into the cloud, and especially on the autonomous database? So these questions, it's a lot of DBAs are asking these days. This is my opinion. My opinion is no, but for sure you need to learn new capabilities. For example, you need to be close to development. You need to be like an application DBA and help the developers on the design and development. You need to understand the architecture. And one thing here in the infrastructure as code. For example, I recommend you to learn all these tools if you are a DBA today and you are planning to stay relevant and you are planning to be a cloud DBA, especially these three, OCI, CLI, if you are going to the OCI. Terraform, this is not just for the Oracle Cloud, but it's a tool to automate your deployments. So imagine you are creating an environment today and you have like 100 servers to create. If you try to do this on the web interface, it will take a lot of time. So you can build your scripts on Terraform, and it's very easy to deploy environments. And another tool, it's Ansible. This is more to automate some tasks. So it's a very nice tool to learn. Okay, let's start talk about the Oracle Cloud and the options. When I'm creating my Oracle database in the Oracle Cloud, I have some options. For example, I can use database cloud services. I can create virtual machines or bare metal. I can create an Exadata. This is the same thing, but this is an Exadata deployed on your data center. And of course, you can use the autonomous database now. When you are creating your database in the Oracle Cloud, you have some options about the edition. So you can use the standard edition, enterprise, and in the Oracle Cloud, you have the high performance with all these options included, and you have the extreme performance. You have all these plus these three options. One thing, automated versus autonomous. So one thing is the autonomous database. This is a cloud service running in the Oracle Cloud. And another thing, it's the automated database service. This automated, it's for example, the XACS and DBCS. Shape. When you are moving to the cloud, you know you are paying for the CPU and memory. So one approach is to use the same amount of CPU and memory that I have, for example, on AWS or on premises. But using this, maybe I'm burning some money. The best way is to use the enterprise manager. On the enterprise manager, there is something called the database consolidation workbench. And if you don't have the enterprise manager, you can go to this blog post from Jorge Barba. It's very nice, and he's showing how to analyze your Ash and the AWR data to compare CPUs and choose the best shape to move. Oracle Cloud, some concepts before you go forward. Regions. We have regions in the Oracle Cloud. For example, it's a geography. I have, for example, one region in the United States, and I have another region in Europe. So I'm using this for disaster and recovery. Another thing, I have availability domains. This is used for high availability. For example, inside the region, I can have 3 availability domains. For example, I have here in US, Ashburn, it's a region. And in Ashburn, I have 3 availability domains. It's 3 different data centers, but close to each other. I'm using this for high availability. And the third one, I have the fault domains. Fault domain, it's basically another rack with hardware in the same data center. So for example, if I lost one machine in one rack, maybe the other one will survive. So just to exemplify how it works, I have a region and I have 3 data centers close to each other. Availability domains, I have 3 availability domains inside a region. And fault domains, it's different hardware inside the same data center inside the same availability domains. This is where you can see your tenancy. It's basically your cloud account. You have your region, availability domain, and I have full domains. Connectivity options. You can use the public internet, you can use the VPN, or you can use Fast Connect. If you have budget, of course, the Fast Connect, it's the best option. Oracle Cloud. Options I have to create my database in the Oracle Cloud. I can create a server, just go to compute an instance, and I create a new server, and this is called infrastructure as a service. So in this case, I'm responsible to install the Oracle database software, patch, create my database, do all the configurations. So this is one option. Another option is to use the database as a service. This is part of the platform as a services, and I have all these options. For example, I can create autonomous database. I can create using bare metal, VM, and Exadata. And if I have an Exadata in my data center, I can go to this option. Another option, this is quite new. So you can use the marketplace. You can go to the OCI, go to the marketplace, and for example, search for database. And you can see here the Oracle database. One thing here, you need to have the license on premises. So you are moving your license on premises to the Oracle Cloud. And when you use the marketplace, one script will create everything for you. So you have a VM deployed with database, and this script will also create the database for you. If you are talking about the migration, you can use the Cloud Advisor. Just go to this URL, and here you can select your source. So for example, I'm moving from on-premises, or I'm moving from AWS. If in this example, I choose AWS, I'm moving from EC2, and I can choose my destination. So in this case, Oracle will show me all the options that I have to migrate from AWS EC2 to the Oracle Cloud. RDS, if you don't know, just to explain, you can compare the RDS with the Oracle Database Cloud Services. But the problem on the RDS, you don't have access as SIS user, or you don't have access to the SO. So in the Oracle Cloud, even if you are using database as a services, you can connect to the database as SIS, or you have access to the SEO. On the Amazon RDS, you don't have this option. Amazon EC2, this you can compare with the infrastructure as a services in the Oracle Cloud. So you deploy a server and you have full access to this server. So you can do everything on the OS. Migration options. If I am on the RDS, I have these options. You can see here, if you are on the RDS, it's more logical migration, because as I said, you don't have access to the OS, and there is an option I will show later how you can do a physical migration on RDS. But if you are planning to move RDS database to OCI, maybe it will be better to use logical migration. If you are using the EC2, basically you have all the options you have on premises. I will explain one by one. This part, I think it's 4 or 5 slides. I will go quickly because I explain one by one later. But just to show you the options, you can look the option, and the database size recommended for this. So for example, this you can use for RDS and EC2. It's more suitable for RDS because it's a logical migration. But for example, you can see here, you can use the SQL developer copy, but look the database size. So it's for very small database. So the option exists, but maybe you not use this option. EC2, you have all the options you have on premises. For example, you can use the data pump, you can use transportable table spaces, you can use remote clone for PDB or non-CDB. You can use recovery manager, all the options from recovery manager. You can use migrate, for example, using the data guard. So you can create data guard in the Oracle Cloud and do the switch over. As I said, when I was talking about the RDS, there is an option to move your backups from Amazon. S3 is the object storage in Amazon, or if you are on Azure, for example, you can move these backups to OCI, to OCI object storage. You can use the rclone. This is one example on the RDS. You can do the physical migration. For example, you can create a directory on the machine, you can set your configuration, and you use this package to create your full backup. So basically this one will run the recovery manager for you, because if you are on the RDS, you don't have access to the SO. So you can use this package to run the recovery manager for you. And then you can upload these files to the S3. And after upload these files, you can just use the rclone and move your backups to the Oracle Cloud. So this is one option you have to move your database, RDS database, using the physical migration if you are not using the logical migration. Okay, talking about RDS migration, you can use your SQL developer, for example, to run the data pump for you, because as you don't have access to the SO on the RDS, you need to use the packages. You can create your code and write everything, or you can just use the SQL developer to generate all the comments for you. So basically, you create your connection to your RDS database, go to data pump, right click, and you can call the export wizard. The wizard will ask you if you are planning to move, for example, the database or the database table space, one schema, it's most common, or if you are planning to move, for example, a few tables. This case I'm choosing, I will move one schema. You can select one schema here, one or more. Thread number, yes, you can, for example, export using parallel process. If you have a big database, for example, you can log all these. You can use the version if you are moving to different version, for example. And here you can choose your directory and the file name. And you have a lot of options here. So we can even move direct to the Oracle Cloud, to the object storage. And you have an option at the end. You can do it now, or you can schedule a job to export your database later. So if I don't have access, how can I see my data pump files? So I can go to Amazon and use this package to show all files I have on this directory, for example. So in this case, I'm exporting one schema, and I have this DMP file on my directory. How can I move this? One option For example, I can create a database link from my AWS database to my OCI database, and I can use this package, the BMS file transfer put file. So in this case, Oracle will read this file and will transfer to my OCI database. To import. So in this case, now I'm connected to my OCI database. On OCI, I have access to the SO, so I can connect to the server using SSH, or I can call the impdp, for example, or I can just do the same. I can go to the SQL developer, right-click, and import wizard. Options to consider. As I said, you have the command line to import your data. Database link. If you have a database link between the AWS to OCI, maybe you can use the option on the command line called network link. So in this case, I don't need to generate file and transfer files between servers. And another option you have is to use the object storage. For example, I can create my backup, move to OCI object storage, and use the impdp to import directly from the object storage. Another option, SQL developer copy. Very easy, but it's for small databases, or if you are planning to move like a few tables, small tables. Just go to the SQL developer, tools, database copy, choose your source, your AWS, destination is the Oracle Cloud. You can do per object, or for example, per schema. And you can basically select your objects, and the tool will generate for you the DDL and DML. Another option is to use the SQL loader. If you are not planning to create the control file for SQL loader manually, you can also go to the SQL developer, tools, database, export, and select the format here, the loader, and the SQL developer will generate for you the DDL and the control file for SQL loader, and another file so with the data. So this is another option you have when you're moving from AWS to OCI. I can use materialized views, for example. Here you can connect to AWS, go to the materialized view logs, create a new materialized view log. If you're planning to do, for example, incremental, is it possible to create your materialized view? Just select your table and your columns. You need a database link. You create a database link from OCI to AWS in this case. On the OCI side, you can create the materialized view, selecting the table on the AWS side. So you can use these to copy some tables, and you can have near zero downtime if you are moving, for example, just a few tables from a database. DMS, this is a very good option. I will not talk too much about this because it's AWS services, but it's an option. If you know the Oracle Golden Gate, it's basically the same concept. It's a logical migration, and you can use these services to enable, for example, near zero downtime migrations. And it's recommended for database to up to 5 terabytes. Okay, that's all for RDS. Let's go to the best part, is the EC2 migration. This is most common, especially if you have big databases on the AWS. Options, I can use export import. for example, I can go from an older version to a new version. So for example, if I'm using database 12c on AWS, I can go directly to 19c on the OCI, for example. On the AWS host, in this case, EC2, I have access to the SO. So I can create my directory, connect to my database, and I can use the SDP to export my database. Okay, then I can move using SCP from my AWS host to the Oracle Cloud. Then I connect to the OCI, I create a directory, point to this place, and I can use in PDP. Same thing, options to consider here. I can use a database link or I can use the object storage. If I'm moving, exporting to object storage, I can use my dump file pointing to this object storage. This is one option that I have. Transportable table space. Yes, it's possible. I can, for example, on my AWS, create my directory inside my database. I can change my table space to read-only mode, export to generate the metadata. Then I will move my metadata and also my table spaces. So I can set back to read right now in the Oracle Cloud. Don't forget to create your user, and I can import my metadata and point to my table, my data files here. Remote cloning. Yes, it's possible. If it's possible to create a database link from AWS to OCI. So I just need to create a database link and I can create a pluggable database on OCI reading the AWS site. So create your pluggable database and open. You can do the same for non-CDBs. For example, if your AWS database is a non-CDB, you do the same, create the database link, create the pluggable database, and you need to run this script, no CDB to CDB. And at the end, you just open your new PDB. Migrate using DataGuard. This is one of my preferred options. The only problem, during this migration, you cannot upgrade to a new version. So for example, if you are using 11.204 on AWS, you need to move to Oracle Cloud using 11.204, and then you can do the upgrade. You have two options. You can do the same for using database as a services or infrastructure as a services. How it works. Basically, you create a physical standby in the Oracle Cloud. You change your client connections, and you do the switch over from AWS to OCI. So this is how it works. So imagine this is going to AWS. I can create a data guard and I can do a switch over to OCI. How you do that? Remember, change your database to archive log mode. If you are running a production database, I recommend you to always set to archive log mode. And don't forget your force logging. You need to create your standby logs. So it's basically the same number of groups you have plus one, and the same size is the recommendation. For example, if you have 3 redo log groups, create 4 standby logs. On the OCI side, you just need to create, for example, one init.aura parameter with only your DB name and create your a dump. This password file, you can create a new one or copy from AWS. So we start in no mount, pointing to this guy here, just one parameter. And then you can connect to the AWS database here, and your auxiliary will be the OCI database. And then you can do the duplicates. At the end of the duplicate, you can use the data guard broker. It's not an obligation, but it's very nice and very easy. You just need to start setting this parameter to true, and then you can connect to the AWS database, create your configuration, point to your primary, and then add your standby, enable, and when you are ready, just do a switch over. So you have now your database in the Oracle Cloud. Unplug and plug. You can, for example, go to the AWS, close your PDB. You can unplug. If you are on 12.1, you need to generate an XML file and copy this XML file and your data files. If you are on 12.2, you can generate one file here, change the .xml to .pdb, and you have all your database structure in one file. So you don't need to generate a structure and another for the data file. So one file will have everything you need. Basically copy these files to the OCI. On the OCI side, you can create your pluggable database, point to this file and to this data file here. And at the end, just open. You can do the same if you have a non-PDB on the AWS side. Basically, you need to change your database on AWS to read-only mode. You generate an XML file, transfer these files, your XML and your data files, to the Oracle Cloud, and create your pluggable database. The extra step here is to run this script to convert your non-CDB to a pluggable database. And at the end, you just open. Okay, migrating using Golden Gate. This is a very good option. You can have near zero downtime migration if you are using Golden Gate. Recovery Manager, I will show later in another tool that I create. You can use, for example, Recovery Manager, restore and recover. You can, for example, connect to the EC2, do the backups, a full backup, for example, move your backup sets to OCI and restore and recover your database. More options. Let me go to this tool that I like to show you. Okay, let me see here. This tool called Mig360. So I'm working as an Oracle consultant, and every time I need to do a database migration, I need to ask to customers all the same questions. For example, I need to know the database size, database versions, pets, SO number of the concurrent users, information about tables, objects, everything. So every time I need to talk to the DBAs, ask a lot of questions and scripts, and it's a lot of calls and emails back and forth. So in this case, I decided to create this tool. It's called Mig360. If you go to GitHub, this is the URL, you can access this. You can just search for Migration 360. just download the zip file. When you download the zip file, you just need to move the zip file to your database server. Let me show a few things here. So download the file, you have to unzip and connect to your database. To execute this, just call this script, and you have some parameters you can pass. For example, if you have tuning pack, if you have diagnostic pack, or if you don't have any of the pack. The second parameter is to run the ESP. This is a tool from Carlos Sierra you can use to consolidation. For example, if you are planning to move a lot of databases and consolidate in one server. The third parameter, you don't need to run the tool for all the sessions. For example, I can run just for one session or for an interval. Let me show you how it works. So here I have a virtual machine just to show quickly how you can use this tool. So unzip the tool, you have this directory, and here you have the sh file. You run the sh, for example, if I have one server and I have like 10 databases running on this server, I can run the sh to, and the tool will connect to each database and run. If I'm running for just one database, I can just run the SQL script. So I will run this. Of course, it's taking longer because I'm presenting on real demo. So in this case, I'm saying I have both diagnostics and tuning pack. So in this case, I select tuning pack. And the second option, I don't need to run the ESP collect because I have just one database on this server. And the tool will start run. When it finishes, it can take a few minutes, so we will not wait. I have some results here. When it finishes, it will generate a zip file for you. So you just need to get the zip file and transfer it to your machine. When you unzip the zip file, you have something like this. So this is the main file for the tool. You can open the index and you see everything. Before I go to the web part, let me show you some good things. For example, this tool can generate for you something called QuickDB view. For example, in a few seconds, I can see the database that I need to work on my project. For example, I know the database name, version, block size. I know the number of data files. I know if it's a single node or it's a rack. I have the configuration for SGA and PGA. I have the number of CPUs. I have the SO. For example, I have the information here. It's a 2-node rack. I know all the patches applied for this database. So if it's a multi-tenant, I know all the PDBs created, information about memory. I know some information about sessions. And I know, for example, the time model. I can see all the events. So just looking in one file, I have a lot of information about my database. Okay, let's go to this part. I have all the information about my database. For example, I can see all parameters. I can see, for example, if someone changed one parameter, I can see non-default parameters. So I can see the values. I have information about the jobs in the scheduler. I can see if my maintenance tasks are enabled, for example. I have information about pets, not only for the database, but if it's running On reapplication cluster, I have the grid infrastructure installed, Oracle cluster. I can see the patch. I have information about memory, SGA, PGA. Some cool things here. I have information, for example, the CPU I have for the cluster, and I have the same information per node. I have also for IOPS and BPS. One good thing here, I have, for example, the product usage. So I can see per PDB, for example, I can see all the options these database are using. So I can check if the customer has a license or not. Some information about database administration. For example, I can see logon triggers. It's very easy when you're moving a database, you forgot to create this kind of objects. I have information about table spaces and data files, ASM. I can check all my backups if it's working or not, read the log information. I have information about user. I can see all the users created on this database profiles. I can see all the privileges, resource manager. This is another good thing. If you're moving, for example, one database and you are using the data pump and you forgot to export, for example, SQL profiles, and maybe you can have some planned regressions on the new environment. CBO, so it's very nice. Result cache, I have information about SO. This part is very good. For example, when you are moving a database, you don't know how the clients connecting to this database. So you can go in this part and you can see all the machines connecting on your database. This part is the sessions connected now based on the $GV session, but you have the same information here on part 5. This is based on your AWR. So you can see past sessions connected to your database. You have information if you have a data guard configured for this database, or you can see if there is Golden Gate running on the database. You have information about SGA, PGA, system time model. This part is very nice. For example, when you are moving to cloud, you are paying per CPU. So maybe it's a good idea to go here and, for example, you can see one SQL is consuming almost 70% of the database. So if you fix one SQL, maybe you can spend less money when you are moving to the database cloud. I have some information about the SEO, for example, listener, SQLnet. Another thing very easy to forget is the configuration of the SQLnet on the source server. I have information about cron tab, for example. Maybe you have a few jobs running on your database servers and you don't know. And the best part, save the best for the last. This tool can also generate for you all the scripts, and you can choose the best migration approach for your database. For example, if you're planning to move your database using data pump, you can just go here and you can do copy and paste, and you have all the commands you need to migrate your database using data pump. If you're planning to use, for example, transportable table space, okay, you have all the commands here. You just need to copy and paste. If you're planning to create a data guard, okay, you have all the commands here. You just need to copy and paste, and your database will be in the Oracle Cloud. and you have a lot of options. Another thing you have here, if you are going to the Oracle Cloud, you have this shape recommendations. So you can see how many CPUs you need in the Oracle Cloud to support this database. I think we are running out of the time. So I'll go back to Rolando to see questions.
There is one question, and I think in the chat window we have other, have to go through them. But the first question in the Q&A section, it says that to use DataGuard migration, must I have Enterprise Edition on both sides, Origin and Destiny? That's what it says.
Yes, it's a good idea. You can have DataGuard on the standard edition, but you have to do a lot of things manually. So you need to transfer your archive logs and apply. But yes, you have both options, but if you are on the Enterprise Edition, it will be easier for you.
Okay, then we have questions about if this session is going to be recorded.
I think so.
The answer is yes, and it will be published in the YouTube channel from LAOUC. Just get to laouc.org, and in a couple of weeks, we will publish them there. People is asking how can they get access to the scripts that you show, Alex?
Sure, just go to the GitHub, to this place here.
Okay.
Or go to the GitHub and search for Migration 360.
Other question is if the migration tool that you showed is only working for AWS?
No, it's working for any kind of migration. You can do migrations on premises to OCI. You can do on premises to on premises, from AWS, from Azure. You can do any combination.
And I think that answers the following question, because another question is if what changes could be applicable in case to handle another cloud platforms, for example, Microsoft Azure. So I think
it's the same. You just need to download the tool and connect to the database using the SQL Plus and run the script.
And finally, another question is, does it create any objects in the database or just read only queries?
Yes, this is a good question. No, it's not creating any object. It's only query because it's a requirement from generally a requirement from clients to do not create any object in the database. So it's just doing select statements and generate the HTML files for you. And another thing, it's not collecting any customer data. It's only metadata. So you don't worry because you don't have information about the customers, for example, tables and something like this.
Okay, and there are two more questions. And it is, in your experience, how is the data speed to migrate AWS to OCI?
It depends the approach you use in terms of the connection between the OCI and the AWS. If you are using the public internet, it's hard. It will be depend on your database size. But if you have a direct connection between the OCI and AWS, you can migrate like terabytes in a few hours.
Okay, and the final question is, well, if the session will be recorded, I already answered that yes, and it will be available in the upcoming 2 weeks. And also the same person is asking if the Migration 360 is open source or if it is for pay.
No, it's free. You can just go to the GitHub and download everything.
Okay, and pretty much that's we have here. There are no more questions, no more comments in the chat window. It was a good amount of questions that we have already answered. So I think we are ready to make the wrap up. Alex, I'm going to start sharing my screen and wrapping up. Okay. So thank you. Thank you again for your time, Alex. Thank you very much for your support. Not only as a speaker, but also as coordinator for the event. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank
also,
you. My pleasure.
Thank you, Alex. Also, thank you for the audience that was here with us the whole day. This is the final session for the day. Tomorrow, we have the track, the second day of the database track. It is tomorrow. So we have another 7 sessions about database tomorrow, August 25th. So don't miss them. And we will continue with the Java track on Wednesday. And we finalize the tracks on Thursday with analytics. And remember that we have hands-on labs on Friday, and also a couple of presentations by our sponsor Quest, and also an Oracle University presentation. Gracias a la audiencia que está escuchándonos y que es de habla hispana. Les agradecemos a Alex por su participación. Recuerden que esta es la última sesión del día. Mañana continuamos con el día, con el track de base de datos, el segundo track de base de datos. La semana pasada, en lunes, empezamos con base de datos y mañana lo retomamos. 7 nuevas sesiones de base de datos. Y seguimos con Java el miércoles, jueves Analytics. Y recuerden que el viernes hay Hands-on Labs, hay sesiones de el Sponsor Quest y de Oracle University, y con eso finalizaríamos el evento. Gracias por acompañarnos. Esto es Groundbreakers Tour Latinoamérica 2020. No dejen de utilizar el código QR para los créditos gratis o bien el Always Free de Oracle. Gracias. Thank you very much for your time. Gracias por su tiempo. Hasta luego. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.